The text wasn't meant for him. Cameron Clark stared at his phone, his waitress Loveth, in a black dress that made his 18 months of silence detonate in his chest. Should I get this for my date? His hands shook. Not from fear. From rage. Another man. She was dressing for another man. He was across the city in 12 minutes, storming into that boutique like a man possessed. When she stepped out of the fitting room, their eyes locked, and she knew he'd kept his distance to protect her. But seeing her prepare to give herself to someone else, protection was over. You are welcome, my viewers. Thanks for always following up on the channel. Kindly tell us in the comments section the exact time and location you are watching from. We would love to know so we can serve you better. The phone vibrated against the mahogany desk at exactly 6:47 p.m. Cameron Clark didn't look up immediately. He was in the middle of negotiations, the kind that required his full attention, the kind where one wrong word could cost someone their life. 3 men sat across from him in his private office, their faces carefully neutral, their hands steady despite the fear Cameron could smell on them. You have until midnight, Cameron said, his voice quiet in the way that made dangerous men nervous. After that, I stop being reasonable. The phone vibrated again. Cameron's jaw tightened. His phone never interrupted meetings. His people knew better. This was either an emergency or... The third vibration made him glance down. Loveth Chris. His heart did something irregular, something that had no place in a man like him. We're done here, Cameron said abruptly, his eyes still on the screen. Mateo will see you out. The men exchanged glances but rose quickly. They knew better than to question Cameron Clark when his tone shifted like that, from ice to something they couldn't quite identify. Mateo, his second in command, herded them toward the door, his scarred eyebrow raised in silent question. Cameron waved him off. The door clicked shut. Silence filled the room, the kind of silence that had been Cameron's companion for 34 years. He'd built an empire in that silence. Commanded loyalty, instilled fear, accumulated power that made politicians nervous and rivals dead. But for 18 months, the silence had felt different. For 18 months, every Tuesday and Thursday evening, he'd sat in the corner booth of his restaurant downtown. The legitimate one, where politicians and CEOs dined, not the back room where he conducted his real business. He'd sit there with a single glass of bourbon, pretending to read contracts, and he'd watch her. Loveth Chris. His waitress. The woman who'd somehow slipped past every defense he'd spent a lifetime building. Cameron unlocked his phone. The first message was a photo. His breath caught. She stood in what was clearly a boutique fitting room, 3-way mirrors reflecting her from every angle. The black dress hugged curves that Cameron had noticed the first night she'd leaned over to clear his table, that he'd catalogued in 18 months of careful, distant observation. It was elegant, sophisticated, the kind of dress that would make every man in a room turn and stare. But it was her expression that struck him. Uncertain. Vulnerable. Seeking approval. The second message appeared. Should I get this black dress? I think it might be too much, but Candace says it's perfect. What do you think? The third message came 3 seconds later. OMG, wrong person. Please delete that. So sorry, Mr. Clark. Cameron stared at the screen. Mr. Clark. 18 months. And she still called him Mr. Clark. Still kept that professional distance even in a mistaken text message. Still saw him as the man who owned the restaurant, who left generous tips, who never looked at her too long even though everything in him wanted to. But she'd meant to send this to someone else. Someone whose opinion on dresses mattered. Someone she was trying to impress. The realization hit him like a blade between the ribs. Cameron stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. His hands that had held guns steady, that had signed death warrants without trembling, shook as he zoomed in on the photo. He could see it now. The nervous energy in her posture. The way she was trying to look confident but couldn't quite manage it. This wasn't just a dress. This was a dress. The kind you wore when you wanted to be remembered. When you wanted to be chosen. She was going on a date. The thought carved through 18 months of careful restraint. Cameron had rules. Boundaries he never crossed. He didn't touch his employees. Didn't blur professional lines. Didn't pursue women who worked for him, who depended on him for their livelihood, who had every reason to feel pressured by his attention. For 18 months, he'd loved Loveth Chris from exactly the distance those rules required. He'd noticed everything. The way she hummed old gospel songs under her breath when she thought no one was listening. How she always wore a small silver cross her grandmother had given her. The sadness that crept into her eyes on Sunday evenings, like she was dreading the week ahead. The careful way she counted her tips, like every dollar mattered because it did. He'd noticed, and he'd kept his distance, and he'd told himself it was noble. But nobility felt like poison now, burning through his veins as he stared at that photo. Should I get this black dress? For another man. To impress another man. To let another man see her the way Cameron had only allowed himself to see her in dreams he'd never admit to having. His phone was in his hand. His fingers moved before his mind could catch up. Where are you? He watched the 3 dots appear. Disappear. Appear again. Mr. Clark, really? Please just delete the photo. I'm so embarrassed. Loveth. Where are you? The dots again. Longer this time. Sinclair's boutique on 5th. But you don't have to. Cameron was already moving. Matteo appeared in the doorway as Cameron grabbed his jacket. Boss? The Rossi meeting in 20. Cancel it. Cancel? Matteo's eyes widened. Cameron Clark didn't cancel meetings. Cameron Clark made people wait for him. Everything okay? Cameron paused at the door, his hand on the frame. Was everything okay? No. Nothing had been okay since the night Loveth Chris had smiled at him. Really smiled, not the professional customer service smile but something genuine and warm, when he'd asked how her shift was going. Since the night he'd realized he could command empires but couldn't command his own heart to stop wanting someone he had no right to want. I need the car, Cameron said instead. Where are we going? I'm going to 5th Street. You're handling the Rossi situation. Matteo's scarred eyebrow climbed higher. In 8 years, he'd never seen Cameron lose composure. Boss. Not now, Matteo. Cameron was out the door before his second-in-command could respond, before he could think too hard about what he was doing, before the careful control that had defined his entire life could reassert itself. Because somewhere on 5th Street, Loveth Chris was standing in a boutique, wearing a black dress for someone else. And 18 months of silence had just shattered with a single mistaken text. He was done being noble. Done being distant. Done watching from corners and pretending his heart wasn't hers. The only question now. Was he already too late? Have you ever realized you loved someone only when you were about to lose them? What would you do if you were Cameron? Stay silent or fight? Drop your thoughts below. I want to know if you think he's making the right choice. The drive to 5th Street took 12 minutes. It felt like 12 hours. Cameron sat in the back of his black Mercedes, his driver navigating evening traffic with practiced efficiency, while his mind raced through scenarios he had no script for. He'd negotiated with cartel leaders, stared down federal prosecutors, orchestrated takeovers that shifted the city's power structure, all with the cool precision that had become his trademark. But this? Confronting a woman about a mistaken text message? Admitting through his presence alone what he'd kept locked away for 18 months? He had no plan. No strategy. No control. Just the image of her in that black dress, burned into his retinas like a brand. His phone vibrated. "Mr. Clark, I promise I'll pretend this never happened. You really don't need to respond. Enjoy your evening." 3 exclamation points. She was spiraling, trying to laugh it off, to restore the professional distance they'd maintained. The distance he'd maintained while she'd remained blissfully unaware that every Tuesday and Thursday, he rearranged his entire schedule just to sit in her section. Cameron's fingers hovered over the keyboard. What could he say? "I'm already on my way because the thought of you wearing that dress for someone else is tearing me apart?" He pocketed the phone without responding. "We're here, sir," his driver announced, pulling up to Sinclair's boutique, an upscale establishment with floor-to-ceiling windows displaying mannequins in evening wear that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Cameron was out of the car before it fully stopped. The boutique's interior was all cream marble and soft lighting, designed to make wealthy women feel pampered while they spent obscene amounts of money. A saleswoman in a sleek black pantsuit looked up from her tablet, her professional smile faltering when she recognized him. Everyone in this city knew Cameron Clark's face. "Mr. Clark," she said, recovering quickly. "How can we help you this evening?" "I'm looking for someone. A woman. Black dress. She's here now." The saleswoman's eyes flickered with understanding, and probably assumptions about what kind of man tracks down a woman in a boutique. "The fitting rooms are in the back, sir. But if you'd like to wait." Cameron was already moving past her. The fitting room area was tucked behind a cream curtain, a semicircle of private rooms surrounding a central area with a 3-way mirror and a small platform. Soft classical music played from hidden speakers. The air smelled like expensive perfume and new fabric. One fitting room door was closed. Cameron stopped 3 feet from it, his heart doing that irregular thing again. Through the gap at the bottom of the door, he could see her feet. She was still wearing those sensible flats she wore for her restaurant shifts, not whatever heels she'd probably pair with the dress. He should leave. This was insane. Inappropriate. She'd accidentally sent him a photo, and he'd driven across the city like a man possessed, and now he was standing outside her fitting room like some kind of... The door opened. Loveth stepped out onto the platform, her eyes down as she adjusted the dress's neckline, completely unaware she had an audience. And Cameron forgot how to breathe. The photo hadn't done it justice. Hadn't captured the way the dress seemed designed specifically for her body, the way the black fabric made her skin glow under the boutique's lighting. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She hadn't dressed up for this shopping trip, which somehow made the dress's impact even more devastating. She turned to check the back in the mirror. And saw him. Her entire body went rigid. The color drained from her face, then rushed back in a deep flush that spread from her cheeks down her neck. Her hand flew to her chest, fingers pressing against the silver cross she always wore. "Mr. Clark." His name came out as barely a whisper. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The classical music played on. Somewhere in the boutique, the saleswoman was probably watching this unfold with fascinated horror. Cameron couldn't speak. Every carefully prepared thought had evaporated the moment she'd stepped out in that dress. All he could do was stare, drinking in details his memory would catalog and replay for years. The way her collarbone caught the light, the uncertain vulnerability in her dark eyes, the slight tremble in her hands. "What are you?" Loveth started, then stopped. Her throat worked as she swallowed. "You're here." "I'm here," Cameron confirmed, his voice rougher than he'd intended. "I told you to delete the photo." "I got your message." "Then why?" She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly self-conscious in a way that made Cameron's chest ache. "This is so embarrassing. I can't believe I sent that to you. I was texting Candace about, and I must have clicked your name by mistake, and... Who is he?" The question came out before Cameron could stop it. Loveth blinked. "What?" "The man you're wearing that dress for." Who is he? Her mouth opened, closed. A dozen emotions flickered across her face. Confusion, realization, something that might have been hope before she shuddered it away. That's not really your concern, Mr. Clark. Mr. Clark. Even now, even with him standing in her boutique fitting room, she kept that wall between them. Cameron took a step closer. Then another. He watched her eyes widen, watched her breath catch, watched her fingers tighten on the cross at her throat. You're right, he said quietly. It's not my concern. You don't work for me when you're off the clock. You don't owe me explanations about your personal life. He paused at the base of the platform, looking up at her. So tell me to leave, Loveth. Tell me this is none of my business, and I'll go. She stared down at him, her chest rising and falling with quick breaths. Tell me, Cameron repeated, his voice dropping lower, that you don't see what's in my eyes right now. That you don't know why I drove across the city the second you sent me that photo. Tell me you don't feel this, and I'll walk out of here and never mention it again. Cameron. His first name on her lips punched through him like a bullet. She caught herself immediately, her hand flying to her mouth. Mr. Clark, I mean. Sir, I'm sorry, Say it again. What? My name. Say it again. The air between them crackled with 18 months of unspoken tension. Loveth's eyes were wide, searching his face like she was seeing him for the first time. Like the careful mask he'd worn in the restaurant had finally cracked open, and she was glimpsing what he'd kept hidden beneath. Cameron, she whispered. Something in his chest broke open. The dress, he said, his eyes never leaving hers. It's perfect. He stopped, the words too big, too revealing, too much for a boutique fitting room on a Thursday evening. Whoever he is, he's the luckiest man alive if you're wearing that for him. Loveth's eyes shimmered. You can't say things like that. Why not? Because you're Cameron Clark. She gestured helplessly, the movement encompassing everything between them. The power differential, the professional boundary, the impossible distance between a mafia boss and his waitress. You're you and I'm just. Just what? Cameron's voice turned sharp. Finish that sentence, Loveth. She looked away, her jaw tight. Someone who serves you drinks twice a week. Is that what you think? He climbed onto the platform. He couldn't help himself, couldn't bear that height difference, that physical manifestation of the distance she thought existed between them. Is that all you think you are to me? I don't know what I am to you, Loveth shot back, and there was heat in her voice now, anger mixing with confusion. You've never given me any indication that I'm anything more than. I noticed the day you started, Cameron interrupted. September 14th. 18 months ago. You were nervous. You dropped a tray of water glasses during your first shift, and you looked like you wanted to disappear into the floor. I told Marcel to take it out of my tab, not yours. Loveth's breath hitched. That was you. I know you hum his eye is on the sparrow, when you think no one's listening. I know you hate working Sundays because it means missing evening service at your grandmother's church. I know you're saving for nursing school, and you're exactly $4,000 short of the tuition for next semester. Cameron took another step closer, watching her eyes widen with each revelation. I know you take your coffee with too much sugar and not enough cream. I know you have a scar on your left wrist from burning yourself in an oven when you were 16. I know. Stop. Loveth's voice cracked. Just stop. Why? Because you're not supposed to know those things. Tears spilled over now, tracking down her cheeks. You're not supposed to notice me like that. You're not supposed to care about my coffee or my scars or my dreams, because men like you don't. Don't what? Don't they fall in love with their waitresses? Cameron's voice was raw now, stripped of every careful control. Because I did, Loveth. I have. For 18 months I've watched you, and wanted you, and told myself I had no right to either because of who I am and what I do and the fact that you work in my restaurant. The words hung between them like a confession and an accusation all at once. Loveth was openly crying now, her hands shaking as she pressed them to her face. You can't mean that. I've never meant anything more in my life. Then why, her voice broke. Why didn't you ever say anything? Why did you let me think? Because I'm a coward, Cameron said simply. Because I didn't want to put you in a position where you felt pressured. Because I convinced myself that staying silent was the honorable thing to do. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. But seeing you in that dress, knowing you're wearing it for someone else? I'm done being honorable. Done being silent. Loveth's whole body was trembling now. I have a date, she whispered. Tonight. That's what the dress is for. Each word was a knife to Cameron's chest. I know. His name is David. He's a high school teacher. He's nice. Normal. I know, Cameron repeated, though he didn't, though the name and occupation were new information that made the knife twist deeper. He's safe, Loveth continued, her voice gaining strength even as tears continued to fall. He doesn't run half the city. He doesn't have blood on his hands. He's the kind of man I should want. The kind of man who makes sense for someone like me. And do you? Cameron asked, his thumb still resting against her cheek. Want him? Loveth closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were full of something that looked like grief. I'm trying to. The honesty of it, the raw, painful honesty, broke something in Cameron that had been cracking since the moment he saw her photo. Try harder, he said roughly, even as every instinct screamed at him to do the opposite, to fight, to claim, to make her see that no safe high school teacher could ever love her the way he did. But he was a coward. He'd admitted it himself. And cowards didn't fight. They let the women they loved walk away in black dresses, to dates with nice, normal men who would never understand the miracle they'd been given. Loveth stared at him like he'd slapped her. What? You deserve safety. You deserve normal. You deserve someone who can give you a life that doesn't come with armed guards and enemies and the constant weight of wondering if today's the day it all comes crashing down. Cameron dropped his hand, stepped back, rebuilt his walls brick by careful brick. Wear the dress for him, Loveth. Let him see what I've been seeing for 18 months. Let him be worthy of you in ways I never could be. Cameron. I'm sorry I came here. I'm sorry I said. He couldn't finish. Couldn't apologize for the only honest thing he'd ever said to her. Enjoy your date. He turned to leave. Cameron, wait. But he was already walking away, already rebuilding the distance, already suffocating under the weight of what he'd almost fought for before cowardice won. Behind him, he heard her call his name one more time. He didn't turn around. Because turning around would mean fighting. And you only fight for love when you're about to lose it. And Cameron had just convinced himself he'd already lost. Loveth stood frozen on the platform for a full minute after Cameron left. The saleswoman appeared hesitantly from behind the curtain, her expression carefully neutral in the way service workers perfected when witnessing their clients' personal dramas. Miss? Are you? Would you like some water? Or perhaps some time alone? I need to change, Loveth heard herself say. Her voice sounded distant, disconnected from her body. I need to get out of this dress. Back in the fitting room, she fumbled with the zipper, her hand shaking so badly she could barely grip it. The black fabric that had felt elegant moments ago now felt like it was suffocating her. She yanked it down, stepped out of it, left it pooled on the floor like evidence of a crime she couldn't name. Her jeans and sweater were draped over the chair. She pulled them on mechanically, catching sight of herself in the mirror. Her eyes were red. Mascara tracked down her cheeks. She'd put on makeup for the shopping trip, wanting to see herself the way David would see her tonight. Now she looked wrecked. Destroyed by 15 minutes in a fitting room with a man who'd just turned her entire world inside out. "I've been in love with you for 18 months. No. He hadn't said that. He'd said he'd fallen in love, past tense, like it was already over. Like it was something to apologize for rather than fight for. Let him be worthy of you in ways I never could be." Loveth pressed her palms against the mirror, her forehead against the cool glass. This was insane. This entire situation was insane. Cameron Clark, the man whose name people whispered in back rooms and dark alleys, the man who controlled half the city's underbelly with a quiet word and a cold stare, had just confessed feelings for her. And then told her to go on her date anyway. A laugh bubbled up in her throat, sharp and slightly hysterical. She choked it back. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it from her purse with trembling hands. "Candace. Girl, did you get the dress? Send pics. David's gonna die when he sees you." Right. David. The date. The normal, safe man who'd asked her to dinner 3 times before she'd finally said yes. Because what kind of fool turned down a nice high school teacher who coached basketball and volunteered at the community center? The kind of fool who spent 18 months memorizing the patterns of a crime lord's restaurant visits, apparently. Loveth typed back with numb fingers. "Got it. It's perfect." She emerged from the fitting room holding the dress on its hanger. The saleswoman was discreetly pretending to organize a rack of evening gowns nearby. "I'll take it," Loveth said. "Wonderful choice. It really is stunning on you. Would you like to? Just ring it up, please." At the register, Loveth watched the numbers climb on the screen. $480. She'd been saving for 3 months for this date. For the dress, the shoes, the confidence that came with knowing she looked good. The money could have gone toward tuition, toward books, toward any number of practical things. But she wanted to feel beautiful. Just once. For someone who might actually see her. Except Cameron had seen her. I had been seeing her. For 18 months. "I know you have a scar on your left wrist from burning yourself in an oven when you were 16. Loveth's hand instinctively went to the scar, hidden now beneath her sweater sleeve. She'd mentioned it exactly once months ago, when a customer had sent back soup for being too cold and Marcel had been short-staffed. She'd helped in the kitchen and burned herself on a pot handle, and when she'd flinched, Cameron had noticed. "Are you all right?" he'd asked, the first personal question he'd ever directed at her. "Old injury," she deflected. "Burned myself on an oven when I was 16, trying to make my grandmother's sweet potato pie. Never quite learned to respect hot surfaces." He'd looked at her for a long moment, something unreadable in his eyes. Then he'd called Marcel over and told him Loveth was done in the kitchen for the night, that she'd serve his section only from now on where she couldn't get hurt. She'd thought it was just employer concern, liability protection. But he'd remembered every detail. 4 months. "Miss." The saleswoman was holding out the credit card reader. "Whenever you're ready." Loveth swiped her card, watching her savings account drop into dangerous territory. The receipt printed. The dress was placed in an elegant black bag with rope handles. "I hope your evening is wonderful," the saleswoman said with a knowing smile. "He's clearly smitten." Loveth managed a weak smile in return. The woman thought Cameron was her boyfriend. Thought this was some romantic gesture, him showing up to see her in the dress. If only she knew how wrong she was. Outside Sinclair's boutique, the evening air was crisp, carrying the smell of roasted chestnuts from a street vendor and exhaust from the constant flow of traffic. Loveth stood on the sidewalk, clutching her shopping bag, utterly lost. Her phone buzzed again. David. Still on for 7:30? Made reservations at Marcello's. Heard great things. Marcello's. A nice Italian place in the theater district. White tablecloths, reasonable prices, romantic lighting. The kind of restaurant where normal people had normal dates that led to normal relationships. Not Cameron's restaurant. Not the upscale establishment where politicians made deals and celebrities sought privacy, and Loveth served drinks while trying not to notice how Cameron's eyes followed her across the room. She should text back. Should confirm. Should go home and do her hair and put on the dress and meet David and try, really try, to want what he was offering. Instead, she found herself typing. Why did you really come to the boutique? She sent it before she could second-guess herself. Watched the message turn to delivered. Then read. The typing indicator appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Nothing came through. Loveth waited a full 5 minutes on that sidewalk, watching her screen, willing those 3 dots to return. They didn't. Fine. If Cameron wanted to make devastating confessions and then retreat behind his walls, she could do the same. She could pretend the last hour hadn't happened. Could go on her date with David and laugh at his jokes and maybe, if she tried hard enough, forget the way Cameron had looked at her when she stepped out in that dress. Like she was something precious. Something worth crossing the city for. Something worth 18 months of silent observation and careful distance. Because I'm a coward. That's what he'd said. Called himself a coward even as he'd driven to her boutique, even as he'd climbed onto that platform, even as he'd wiped tears from her cheeks and admitted he'd been in love with her. What kind of man confessed love and walked away in the same breath? The kind who believed she deserved better than what he could offer, apparently. Loveth's phone buzzed. Her heart leaped, but it was just Candace again. Candace, where are you? Need help getting ready? I can come over. Right. Getting ready. For David. For the safe choice. For the life that made sense. Loveth forced herself to type back. I'm good. See you tomorrow. Wish me luck. Candace. You don't need luck, babe. You're gorgeous. He's lucky you said yes. Now go knock him dead in that dress. Loveth looked down at the shopping bag. $480. 3 months of saving. All for a dress she'd accidentally shown to the wrong man. Except maybe it hadn't been an accident. Maybe some part of her, the part that memorized Cameron's schedule, that always made sure her station was perfect on Tuesdays and Thursdays, that had noticed the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching, had wanted him to see, had wanted him to react, had wanted him to fight. But he hadn't. He'd confessed and retreated, had told her to try harder to want someone else. Well, fine. She would. Loveth straightened her shoulders, gripped the shopping bag tighter, and headed for the subway. She had 3 hours before her date. 3 hours to fix her makeup, style her hair, transform herself into the kind of woman who could walk into Marcello's on David Chen's arm and mean it. 3 hours to forget Cameron Clark's thumb against her cheek. 3 hours to stop hearing his voice. I've never meant anything more in my life. 3 hours to convince herself that love wasn't supposed to hurt this much before it even began. By the time she reached her apartment, a small studio in a converted brownstone, 4th floor walk-up, barely affordable even with her tips, Loveth had almost succeeded in rebuilding her own walls. Almost. But when she hung the black dress in her cramped closet, when she saw it hanging there like a question she didn't know how to answer, the walls cracked again. Her phone sat silent on her dresser. No more messages from Cameron. No explanations. No fight. Just silence. The The same silence he'd maintained for 18 months while he'd been falling in love with her from across a restaurant dining room. Loveth stared at herself in the mirror. Really looked at herself the way Cameron claimed he'd been looking at her. She saw what she always saw. A 26-year-old woman with tired eyes and big dreams she couldn't quite afford. Someone who served drinks and smiled at customers and went home alone to count her tips and wonder if this was all her life would ever amount to. But Cameron had looked at her and seen something else. Something worth noticing. Worth remembering. Worth 18 months of careful attention. Worth driving across the city for. Just not worth fighting for. Her phone buzzed. Despite everything, her heart jumped. David. Looking forward to tonight. Fair warning. I'm nervous. It's been a while since I've been on a date with someone as amazing as you. Sweet. Sincere. Exactly the kind of message that should make her smile. Loveth typed back. Me too. See you at 7:30. She set the phone down and turned to her closet. The black dress hung there, waiting. Mocking. Reminding her of the moment everything had shifted, when Cameron Clark had looked at her like she was the only woman in the world and then told her to let someone else have her. Try harder, she whispered to her reflection, echoing his words back to herself. Just try harder to want the right thing. But as she started doing her hair, as she reapplied her makeup, as she prepared to slip into that dress and meet a nice, safe man for a nice, safe date, one question kept circling through her mind. If Cameron Clark loved her enough to notice everything, to remember everything, to drive across the city the moment he thought she was choosing someone else, why hadn't he loved her enough to stay? Cameron made it exactly 6 blocks before he told his driver to turn around. Then he told him to keep driving. Then turn around again. Boss, his driver said carefully. Marcus had been with him for 5 years and knew when to speak and when to stay silent. This was apparently a speaking moment. Where do you want to go? Cameron stared out the tinted window at the city streaming past. Neon signs reflected off rain-slicked streets. People hurried along sidewalks with their heads down, umbrellas blooming like dark flowers against the drizzle that had started falling. Normal people. Living normal lives. Going on normal dates with normal expectations. Just drive, Cameron said. His phone sat heavy in his pocket. He'd seen her text, "Why did you really come to the boutique?" And he'd started to answer a dozen times. But what could he say that he hadn't already said? That wouldn't make things worse? Because I've been in love with you for 18 months and seeing you prepare for a date with another man made me lose my mind. Because I'm selfish enough to want you but too much of a coward to actually fight for you. Because I needed to see if you felt even a fraction of what I feel, and the look in your eyes told me you might. But I walked away anyway because that's what cowards do. He'd typed and deleted every variation. Then he'd put the phone away and told Marcus to drive, because sitting still felt impossible and going back to his office felt like surrender and going home to his empty penthouse felt like admitting defeat. "Sir," Marcus said after another 10 minutes of aimless driving, "we're approaching Miss Chris's neighborhood." Cameron's head snapped up. Sure enough, they were 3 blocks from the converted brownstone where Loveth lived. He'd never been inside, never crossed that line, but he knew the address. Knew she lived on the 4th floor. Knew there was no elevator and the hot water was unreliable, and she'd complained once to Candace within his earshot that her landlord took 3 weeks to fix anything. He'd almost bought the building just to ensure proper maintenance. "Keep," Cameron started, then stopped. Because there she was. Loveth, standing under the awning of her building, clearly waiting for something. She'd changed back into her jeans and sweater, but she was holding that black shopping bag. Her hair was damp from the drizzle, and even from half a block away, Cameron could see the tension in her shoulders. "Pull over," he said. "Boss." "Pull over, Marcus." The Mercedes slid to the curb 20 feet from where Loveth stood. Cameron watched her through the rain-streaked window. She checked her phone, glanced up the street, shifted her weight from foot to foot. Waiting for a rideshare. Probably. To take her home so she could get ready for her date. Her date with David, the high school teacher. Her date with a man who was safe and normal and everything Cameron would never be. Cameron's hand was on the door handle before he could think better of it. "Sir," Marcus said, a warning in his tone. "I know," Cameron replied. But he opened the door anyway. The rain immediately dampened his hair, his shoulders. He didn't care. He walked toward her with no plan, no script, no idea what he was going to say when he reached her. Loveth saw him when he was 10 feet away. Her eyes widened, and something flickered across her face. Surprise, confusion, and something else. Something that looked dangerously close to hope before she shuddered it away. "Are you following me now?" she asked, but there was no real accusation in her voice. Just exhaustion. "No." "Yes." "I don't know." Cameron stopped a few feet away, close enough to see the mascara smudges she'd tried to clean up, the redness around her eyes. "My driver was just... We were in the area." Cameron Clark doesn't just drive around aimlessly. Apparently he does when he's just told the woman he loves to go on a date with someone else. The words hung between them in the rain. Loveth's grip tightened on the shopping bag. "You told me to try harder," she said quietly. "To want him." "I know what I said." "Then why are you here?" "Because I'm a hypocrite," Cameron admitted. "Because I can tell you to choose the safe option all day long, but I can't actually stomach the thought of you doing it. Because I made it 6 blocks before I wanted to turn around, and I've been driving in circles for 20 minutes trying to talk myself out of coming back here." Loveth stared at him. "You're not making any sense." "I know." "You can't just..." She gestured helplessly between them. "You can't tell me you love me and then walk away and then show up at my apartment. You can't keep doing this. It's not fair." "You're right. None of this is fair." Cameron took a step closer, rain dripping down his face. "It's not fair that I noticed you the day you started working for me. It's not fair that I've spent 18 months watching you and wanting you and telling myself I had no right to either. It's not fair that you accidentally sent me a photo that was meant for someone else, and it made me realize I'm about to lose something I never even let myself try to have." "Cameron." "Get in the car." Loveth blinked. "What?" "It's raining. You're waiting for a ride. Let me drive you home." "I am home," she said, pointing up at the building. Cameron glanced at the brownstone, then back at her. "Then let me drive you somewhere. Anywhere. Just give me 20 minutes, Loveth. 20 minutes before you go inside and get ready for your date. Before you put on that dress for him instead of me. Before I lose my chance to say everything I should have said 18 months ago." The rain fell harder. Loveth stood there, searching his face for something. Truth, maybe, or proof that this was real, that he meant it. 20 minutes, she finally said. "But then I have to get ready." "I promised David." "I know." Cameron gestured toward the Mercedes. 20 minutes. She hesitated for one more moment, then moved toward the car. Marcus had already opened the back door. She slid inside, and Cameron followed, the shopping bag between them like a physical reminder of what they were both avoiding. Marcus pulled back into traffic without being told, giving them privacy via the raised partition. Silence filled the car. Heavy, loaded with 18 months of unspoken words. The leather seats, the soft lighting, the expensive interior that smelled like cedar and Cameron's cologne. It was all so far removed from Loveth's world that Cameron could see her discomfort in the way she sat too straight, her hands clasped too tightly in her lap. "Where are we going?" she asked after a full minute of driving. "I don't know," Cameron admitted. "Marcus is just driving." "You really was circling my neighborhood." I told you. I can't seem to leave. Loveth turned to look at him fully, and the rawness in her expression made Cameron's chest ache. Why didn't you ever say anything? Before today. Before all of this. If you felt this way for 18 months, why did you let me think that you were just my waitress? Cameron finished. Because it was easier than the truth. Safer for both of us. You work for me, Loveth. That power dynamic alone makes anything between us complicated. Add in who I am, what I do, the danger that comes with being associated with me. It seemed kinder to keep my distance. Kinder, she repeated, something sharp in her voice. You think it was kind? Cameron, I've spent 18 months wondering if I was invisible to you. If all those times I caught you looking at me were just in my head. If I was pathetic for caring whether you showed up on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Cameron's heart stuttered. You noticed my schedule. Of course I noticed. Loveth looked away, her jaw tight. You think I didn't see you? Didn't wonder why you always sat in my section. Why you'd rearrange your entire evening to be there at exactly 6:30. I'm not stupid, Cameron. I noticed. But I also noticed that you never said a word to me beyond bourbon, neat, and thank you, Loveth. So I convinced myself I was reading into things. That men like you don't see women like me as anything more than. Stop, Cameron cut in sharply. Don't finish that sentence. Don't you dare diminish yourself like that. Why not? You did. You looked at me and decided I wasn't worth the risk. That keeping your distance was the noble choice. Her voice cracked. Do you have any idea how that feels? To finally have confirmation that someone noticed you, wanted you, maybe even loved you, but decided you weren't worth fighting for. The accusation hit like a physical blow. Cameron turned toward her fully, and before he could think better of it, he reached out and cupped her face with both hands, forcing her to look at him. You listen to me, he said, his voice low and intense. Every decision I made was about protecting you. From me. From my world. From the violence and danger and ugliness that follows me everywhere I go. It was never, because you weren't worth it. You're worth everything, Loveth. You're worth more than I could ever offer you. Tears spilled over, tracking down her cheeks and over his thumbs. Then why does it feel like you're still walking away? Cameron didn't have an answer. Because she was right. He'd told her he loved her, shown up at her apartment, pulled her into his car, but he was still giving her an out. Still telling her to choose David. Still too afraid to actually fight. The car slowed. Cameron glanced out the window and realized Marcus had driven them to the waterfront. A quiet spot overlooking the harbor where the city lights reflected off dark water. The rain had softened to a light mist. We're here, Marcus's voice came through the intercom. Give us a minute, Cameron said. The partition went back up. Cameron turned back to Loveth, his hands still cradling her face. Ask me, he said. Ask you what? Whatever you want to know. Whatever you need to hear. You've got 20 minutes, and I'm done hiding. Ask me anything. Loveth's eyes searched his. Do you really love me? Or is this just, I don't know, possessiveness? Jealousy because someone else wanted me first. I've loved you since the night you stayed 2 hours past your shift to help Marcel when his sous chef didn't show up, Cameron said without hesitation. You didn't have to. You were exhausted. But you stayed because you knew he needed help, and when you finally left, you were humming that gospel song despite being dead on your feet. That's when I knew. That's when I stopped pretending this was just attraction and admitted to myself that I was in love with you. That was 14 months ago, Loveth whispered. 14 months of watching you. Protecting you in ways you never knew. Making sure you always had the best section, the best tips. Firing a customer who grabbed your arm too roughly. Paying off your student loans. What? Loveth jerked back. My loans were. There was an anonymous payment last year. That was you. Cameron nodded. $4,000. The exact amount you needed to finish your prerequisites. Her hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. Cameron, I thought it was a scholarship mistake. I called the bursar's office 5 times. It wasn't a mistake. You needed it. I could provide it. End of story. That's not, you can't just. She was crying harder now, overwhelmed. Why would you do that? Because I love you, Cameron said simply. Because watching you struggle when I had the means to help felt like torture. Because even if I could never tell you, even if I could never have you, I could at least do that much. Loveth covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. Cameron pulled her against his chest, and she went, clutching his shirt like she was drowning and he was the only solid thing in reach. They sat like that for a long moment, her crying into his chest, him holding her like she might disappear if he let go, rain pattering softly against the car windows. I don't know what to do, Loveth finally said, her voice muffled against his shirt. David is waiting for me. I promised him a date. He's been nothing but kind and patient, and he deserves better than me showing up when my heart is. With someone else? Cameron finished quietly. She pulled back enough to look up at him. I don't know where my heart is. An hour ago, I was getting ready to try, really try, to build something with David. Then you showed up and said all these things, and now I'm in your car and you're telling me you paid off my student loans and I don't know which way is up anymore. So don't decide right now, Cameron said, even though it killed him. Go home. Get ready. Go on your date. See if David can give you what you need. And what if he can't? Then you know where to find me. Loveth stared at him for a long moment. You're doing it again. Telling me to choose someone else. I'm telling you to choose yourself, Cameron corrected. To make a decision that's about what you want, not about what I want or what David wants or what makes the most sense on paper. What do you want, Loveth? The question hung between them, the most important question, the one that mattered more than any confession or gesture or 20-minute car ride. And Loveth, looking into Cameron's eyes with her heart in her throat, realized she didn't have an answer. Not yet. Sometimes the hardest question isn't do they love me? But, what do I actually want? If you were Loveth, would you go on the date with David or stay with Cameron? Tell me in the comments. I need to know what you think she should do. I want. Loveth started then stopped. Her hands were still twisted in Cameron's shirt, her face inches from his. I want to understand. Understand what? All of it. You. She pulled back slightly, creating just enough distance to think clearly. You say you've loved me for over a year, but you never said a word. You paid off my loans but stayed silent. You noticed everything but kept your distance. I need to understand why, Cameron. Because right now it feels like you love me enough to help from the shadows but not enough to actually be with me. The accusation stung because it was partially true. Cameron released her, running a hand through his damp hair. It's not that simple. Then make it simple. Explain it to me. Cameron looked out at the harbor, at the city lights dancing on dark water. The rain had stopped completely now, leaving everything clean and quiet. My father, he said finally, died when I was 19. Shot 3 times in the chest outside our family restaurant, the same restaurant where you work now. Loveth's breath caught. Cameron. My mother found him. She was coming to bring him dinner because he'd been working late, going over the books, trying to make the business legitimate. Trying to get us out. Cameron's jaw tightened. The men who killed him thought they were sending a message to our competitors. They didn't know my mother would be the one to find him. Didn't know she'd have a heart attack right there on the sidewalk, holding his body. "Oh God," Loveth whispered. "She survived. Barely. She's in a care facility now. Early onset dementia, triggered by the trauma. Some days she knows me. Most days she thinks I'm my father." Cameron's voice was flat, emotionless in the way that meant he was feeling too much. "She's 53 years old, and she'll spend the rest of her life in that facility because my father tried to go legitimate and got killed for it." Loveth reached for his hand. He let her take it, his fingers closing around hers like a lifeline. "I was supposed to go to college," Cameron continued. "Had a scholarship to study business at Columbia. Instead, I inherited an empire built on blood and violence, and I had two choices. Walk away and let it all collapse, or step up and become the thing my father died trying to escape. You chose the empire. I chose survival. For my mother. For the people who depended on us. For the neighborhood that would have been carved up by rivals if I'd left a power vacuum." Cameron looked at their joined hands. "And I was good at it, Loveth. Better than my father ever was. I was cold enough, ruthless enough, smart enough to not just survive but thrive. Within 5 years, I controlled everything my father had dreamed of controlling. Within 10, I was untouchable." "But you were alone," Loveth said softly. "Alone is safe. Alone means no one else gets hurt because of who you are or what you do." Cameron's thumb traced circles on her palm, an unconscious gesture that felt devastatingly intimate. "I've had relationships. Brief ones. Women who were attracted to the power, the danger. Women who thought they could handle being with someone like me until they realized what that actually meant." "What does it mean?" "It means armed guards. It means enemies you'll never see coming. It means wondering if the car that's following you is protection or threat. It means watching your words at parties because you never know who's listening. It means phone calls in the middle of the night and blood on my clothes and decisions that would horrify you if you knew the details." Cameron turned to face her fully. "It means that everyone I care about becomes a target. A weakness. A tool my enemies can use against me." "Like your mother," Loveth said, understanding dawning. "Like my mother. Like Mateo's sister, who was kidnapped 6 years ago and held for ransom until we paid $2 million for her safe return. Like my accountant's son, who got beaten outside his school as a warning when the accountant tried to cooperate with the feds." Cameron's voice turned rough. "That's what it means to be close to me, Loveth. That's the life I'd be asking you to accept. So you decided to protect me by keeping your distance. I decided to protect you by not making you a target. By loving you from far enough away that my enemies would never think to use you against me." Cameron's laugh was bitter. "But then you sent me that photo, and I drove to that boutique, and every criminal with eyes in this city now knows that Cameron Clark dropped everything to chase after his waitress. So congratulations. I've already failed at keeping you safe." Loveth absorbed this, her mind racing. "That's why you told me to go on the date with David. You think if I choose him, your enemies won't see me as connected to you. I think if you choose him, you have a chance at a normal life. A safe life." Cameron cupped her face again, his touch achingly gentle. "I think you deserve someone who can take you to dinner without checking for exits first. Someone whose past won't put a target on your back. Someone who can give you the quiet, peaceful life you should have." "And what if I don't want quiet and peaceful?" Loveth asked. "What if I want you?" Cameron's control cracked. He leaned forward, his forehead resting against hers. "Then you'd be choosing a life I can't fully protect you from. A life where loving me comes with consequences I can minimize but never eliminate. People fall in love with complicated men all the time, Cameron. Not men like me. Not men with body counts and enemies and blood on their hands that no amount of washing will ever clean. He pulled back slightly. Loveth, I've killed people. Not in some abstract way. I've literally ended lives. Some of them deserved it. Some of them probably didn't. That's who you'd be choosing. Instead of recoiling, Loveth asked quietly, "Does it keep you up at night?" The question surprised him. What? The killing. The violence. Does it haunt you? Or have you made peace with it? Cameron considered lying, but he'd promised her truth. Both. There are nights I can't sleep because I see their faces. And there are decisions I'd make again without hesitation because they were necessary. I'm not a good man, Loveth. I'm not even sure I'm a redeemable one. But you visit your mother every week, Loveth said. I know because you always smell like lavender on Wednesdays, the same scent they use in care facilities. You paid off a waitress's student loans because you couldn't stand watching her struggle. You fired a customer for grabbing my arm, and you made sure Marcel always had enough staff so we wouldn't be overwhelmed. Those are small things. No, Loveth interrupted firmly. They're not. They're the choices you make when no one's watching. When there's no strategic advantage. When it's just you deciding what kind of man you want to be. She squeezed his hand. You're not irredeemable, Cameron. You're just scared that the good parts of you aren't enough to balance the dark parts. The observation cut too close to truth. Cameron looked away, his throat tight. My grandmother raised me, Loveth said after a moment. My mother was 16 when she had me. Got involved with a man who promised her the world and gave her nothing but heartbreak and an addiction she couldn't kick. She died when I was 7. Overdose in a motel room. They found her with my birthday present in her purse. She'd been trying to get clean long enough to see me. Loveth. My grandmother took me in even though she could barely afford to feed herself. Worked 2 jobs to keep me in school. Taught me that people are more than their worst mistakes. Loveth's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. She also taught me that loving someone means seeing all of them, the light and the dark, and choosing them anyway. Not despite their flaws, but including them. Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman. She is. She's also the one who taught me my worth. Loveth met his gaze steadily. So when you tell me I deserve better than you, what you're really saying is that you've decided for me what I can handle. That you know better than I do what's good for me. Cameron started to protest, then stopped. Because she was right. Again. I'm not some fragile thing that needs protecting from hard truths, Loveth continued. I'm a woman who survived poverty and loss and men who saw me as disposable. I'm stronger than you're giving me credit for. I know you're strong. Then treat me like it. Stop deciding what I can or can't handle. Stop telling me to choose the safe option when you're the one I can't stop thinking about. Her voice dropped. Stop loving me like I'm something you have to protect and start loving me like I'm someone you want to build something with. The words hung between them, a challenge and an invitation all at once. Cameron looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not the waitress he'd been protecting from afar, but the woman she actually was. Strong. Resilient. Clear-eyed about life's hardships in a way that came from living through them. If you choose this, he said slowly, if you choose me, it won't be easy. There will be days you question the decision. Days you resent what it costs you. Probably, Loveth agreed. But that's true of any relationship worth having. Love isn't supposed to be easy, Cameron. It's supposed to be worth it. And you think I'm worth it? She smiled, small and uncertain but real. I think you're worth finding out. I think we're worth fighting for. Her smile faded. But I need you to fight too. Not just today, not just in this car. I need you to actually choose me back. To stop giving me outs and start asking me to stay. Cameron's heart hammered against his ribs. This was the moment. The choice. He could retreat again, could send her to her date with David, could maintain the distance that had kept them both safe for 18 months. Or he could fight. Cancel your date, he said. Loveth's breath caught. What? Your date with David. Cancel it. Cameron's voice turned fierce. Not because I'm telling you to. Not because you owe me anything. But because if you walk into that restaurant tonight thinking about me, wondering what could have been, you'll be doing both of you a disservice. David deserves someone who's all in. And you deserve to make a choice with your eyes wide open. And what happens if I cancel it? Then you come to dinner with me. My place. Just us. And we talk, really talk about what this would look like. The reality, not the fantasy. The security measures and the complications and the fact that dating me means background checks and armed guards and a level of scrutiny you've never experienced. Cameron's jaw set. And if after all that, you still want to try, then we try. Together. Loveth stared at him, her chest rising and falling rapidly. You're serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. This is crazy. Probably. David's a good man. I know. He'd treat me well. I know that too. But he's not you, Loveth whispered. Cameron's control finally shattered completely. He pulled her against him, one hand tangling in her hair, the other pressed against the small of her back. No, he agreed roughly. He's not. And I'm selfish enough to be grateful for that. Loveth pulled back just enough to see his face. I need to call him. I know. I need to do it now before I lose my nerve. I know, Cameron repeated. But Loveth, you don't have to do this for me. If you want to go on that date, if you want to see if David... She pressed her fingers to his lips, silencing him. Stop. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for me. Because I'm tired of choosing the safe option. Tired of settling for men who are appropriate, when what I really want is someone who drives across the city in the rain because he can't stand the thought of losing me. Cameron kissed her fingers, then gently moved them aside. Call him. Loveth pulled out her phone with trembling hands. Found David's contact. Hesitated. You can still change your mind, Cameron said quietly. Right up until you hit send. I know. Loveth took a deep breath and dialed. David answered on the second ring. Hey. I was just leaving to head to the restaurant. You all set? David, Loveth's voice cracked. She cleared her throat, tried again. I need to cancel tonight. I'm so sorry. Silence on the other end. Then, is everything okay? Are you sick? No, I'm fine. But I can't go to dinner with you. Not tonight and not. She glanced at Cameron, found strength in his steady gaze. Not ever. I'm sorry. You're a wonderful person, and you deserve someone who's all in. That's not me. It wouldn't be fair to either of us. More silence. Then a long exhale. There's someone else. It wasn't a question. Yes, Loveth admitted. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry for being honest. David's voice was kind despite the disappointment. I appreciate you telling me now rather than stringing me along. I hope he deserves you. I'm not sure either of us deserves each other, Loveth said, tears tracking down her cheeks. But we're going to try anyway. Then I hope it works out. I really do. A pause. Take care of yourself, Loveth. You too, David. She ended the call and sat there, phone in hand, crying quietly. Cameron pulled her back against his chest, holding her while she cried for the nice, safe man she'd just let go. For the easier path she'd just walked away from. For the terrifying, exhilarating unknown she'd just chosen instead. "No going back now," she said when the tears finally subsided. "No," Cameron agreed. "No going back. Just forward. Together." Loveth looked up at him, her eyes red but clear. "So what happens now?" Cameron smiled, the first real smile she'd ever seen from him. It transformed his entire face, made him look younger, almost boyish. "Now," he said, "we go to dinner. And I spend the entire evening trying to convince you that choosing me wasn't the worst decision you've ever made." "And tomorrow?" "Tomorrow we figure out the rest. One day at a time." He cupped her face, his thumbs wiping away the last of her tears. "But tonight? Tonight is just us. No more running. No more distance. Just two people who've wasted 18 months not being together, making up for lost time." Loveth leaned into his touch. "I'm scared." "Good. So am I." Cameron pressed a kiss to her forehead. "But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you." And in the quiet of that car, with the city lights reflecting off the harbor and rain beginning to fall again, Loveth Chris made her choice. Not the safe one. Not the easy one. But hers. Cameron's penthouse was nothing like Loveth had imagined. She'd expected cold opulence, all marble and steel and expensive art chosen by designers who'd never met him. Instead, she walked into warmth. Exposed brick walls. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves crammed with worn paperbacks. A kitchen that actually looked used, with herbs growing on the windowsill and a well-seasoned cast-iron pan hanging above the stove. "You cook?" she asked, surprised. "My mother taught me before." Cameron set down her bag. He'd insisted on taking her home to change first, had waited outside while she swapped her jeans for a simple dress, navy blue this time, comfortable. She said a man who couldn't feed himself was half a man. "So yes, I cook." "What are we having?" "That depends. Are you allergic to anything? Any foods you hate?" Loveth smiled. "After 18 months of watching me, you don't already know?" "I know you always order the chicken piccata when you eat at the restaurant on your breaks. I know you put hot sauce on almost everything. I know you hate cilantro because you told Candace it tastes like soap." Cameron moved into the kitchen, his movements efficient and practiced. "But I don't know what you want tonight. So I'm asking." The simple act of being asked, of having her preferences matter, made Loveth's throat tight. "Surprise me." He did. While she explored his living space, pausing at the bookshelf where romance novels sat next to military strategy texts, at the photographs of a younger Cameron with a beautiful woman who had to be his mother, Cameron prepared pasta carbonara from scratch. The real kind, he explained. With eggs and pecorino and pancetta he'd cured himself. "You cured your own pancetta?" Loveth said, laughing. "Of course you did. What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you're full of contradictions. Crime boss who grows herbs. Killer who reads romance novels. Man who threatens people for a living but cures his own meat." Cameron plated the pasta, the movements sure and graceful. "People are rarely just one thing, Loveth. The sooner you accept that, the easier this gets." They ate at his kitchen island, not the formal dining room she'd glimpsed, but this casual space where Cameron clearly spent actual time. He poured wine she couldn't pronounce, and they talked. Really talked. About her grandmother, who was in a nursing home now, her memory fading but her faith unshakable. About Cameron's visits to his mother, how some days she called him by his father's name and he didn't have the heart to correct her. About Loveth's dream of becoming a nurse, of giving back the kind of care her grandmother had given her. "I'll pay for school," Cameron said. "Full tuition, books, everything." "No." Loveth's voice was firm. You already paid off my loans without asking. I appreciate it. God, I appreciate it more than I can say, but I need to do this part myself. I need to know I earned it." Instead of arguing, Cameron nodded. "I understand. But I have one request." "What?" "Let me pay for security. Just during your commute to campus, to clinicals. Let me know you're safe." Loveth wanted to refuse. But she saw the fear in his eyes. Real fear, born from loss and experience. "Okay," she agreed. "But discreet security. I don't want armed guards following me into classrooms." "Discreet. I promise." After dinner, Cameron showed her the view from his balcony. The entire city spread out below them, lights twinkling like earthbound stars. He stood behind her, his arms wrapped around her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder. "I could get used to this," Loveth admitted. "That's the plan." She turned in his arms, looking up at him. "Cameron." "Yes. Kiss me." He'd been waiting for permission. She understood that now. Despite his power, despite his control, he'd been waiting for her to close the final distance. So she did. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, both of them learning the shape and taste of each other. Then it deepened. 18 months of longing pouring into the connection. Cameron's hand tangled in her hair. Loveth's fingers gripped his shirt, pulling him closer, closer, until there was no space left between them. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Cameron pressed his forehead to hers. "Worth the wait?" Loveth asked. "Worth everything," he replied. And for the first time in 18 months, the distance between them was finally, completely gone. The peace lasted exactly 4 days. 4 perfect days where Loveth fell asleep in Cameron's arms and woke up to breakfast he'd made. Where they talked about everything and nothing, where he took her to meet his mother, who had a lucid day and squeezed Loveth's hand and whispered, "Finally! Someone who sees him." 4 days before reality crashed back in. Loveth was closing up at the restaurant. Cameron had insisted she could quit, but she'd refused, needing the normalcy, the independence. Mateo was waiting outside to drive her to the penthouse, his presence both reassuring and slightly unsettling. She was counting out her register when Marcel called her into his office. And there, sitting across from Marcel's desk, was a federal agent. "Miss Chris," the woman said, standing. "I'm Agent Rebecca Torres, FBI. I need to ask you a few questions about Cameron Clark." Loveth's blood went cold. The next hour was a nightmare. Agent Torres asking questions about Cameron's business, his associates, his schedule. About Loveth's relationship with him. When it started, what she knew, what she'd witnessed. "I'm a waitress," Loveth kept saying. "I don't know anything about his business." "But you're living with him now," Torres pressed. "You're in a relationship. Surely he's mentioned." "He keeps that part of his life separate," Loveth insisted. "I've never asked, and he's never told me." Torres studied her for a long moment. "Miss Chris, Cameron Clark is dangerous. Whatever he's told you about himself, whatever you think you know, it's a fraction of the truth. He's hurt people, killed people, built an empire on suffering." She leaned forward. "But you could help us. You're in a position to see things, hear things. We could protect you, set you up somewhere safe if you cooperate." "You want me to spy on him," Loveth said flatly. "We want you to do the right thing." "The right thing," Loveth repeated. She stood up, her legs shaking. "I don't know what you think Cameron is to me, but I'm not going to betray him. I'm not going to wear a wire or report back or play informant. So if we're done here..." "We're not done, Miss Chris. This investigation is ongoing, and you're now a person of interest. Think very carefully about your choices." Loveth left the office feeling like she might vomit. Matteo drove her home in silence. He knew something had happened but didn't press. When they reached the penthouse, Cameron took one look at her face and his expression turned dangerous. What happened? She told him everything. Watched his face turn to stone as she described Torres. The questions, the implicit threat. This is why, he said when she finished. His voice was eerily calm. This is exactly why I tried to keep you at distance. They'll use you against me, Loveth. They'll pressure you, threaten you, make your life hell until you either break or what? Loveth demanded. Say it, Cameron. Or what? Or until I become a liability you can't afford to keep. Cameron moved to the window, his back to her. Maybe you should cooperate with them. Loveth felt like he'd slapped her. What? Tell them whatever they want to know. Get immunity, protection, a new life somewhere far from all of this. Are you seriously, after 4 days, after everything, you're telling me to work with the FBI against you? I'm telling you to save yourself. I don't need saving. Loveth shouted. I need you to stop pushing me away every time things get hard. This isn't hard, Loveth. This is your life being destroyed because of me. My life was barely a life before you. The words exploded out of her. I was surviving, not living. Working doubles to afford a studio apartment, dating men I felt nothing for because they were safe, telling myself that quiet desperation was better than taking risks. Tears streamed down her face. You made me feel seen. Feel wanted. Feel like maybe I deserved more than just surviving. And now at the first real obstacle, you're trying to ship me off for my own good. You don't understand what they can do. Then explain it to me. Stop protecting me from information and trust me to make my own choices. She grabbed his arm, forcing him to face her. I chose you, Cameron. Knowing the risks. Knowing the danger. Stop trying to unchoose me. What if I can't keep you safe? The question came out raw, broken. What if loving you gets you killed like it got my father killed? What if? Then we deal with it together, Loveth said fiercely. But I won't let fear make my choices for me. And I won't let you sabotage this because you're scared. Cameron stared at her, something crumbling behind his eyes. I don't know how to do this. How to love someone and not destroy them. You learn, Loveth said. We both learn. Together. But Cameron shook his head. I need time. I need to think about what's best for. Don't, Loveth whispered. Don't finish that sentence. Because if you send me away, for my own good, if you make this decision for me, I won't come back, Cameron. I can't keep fighting for us if you won't fight too. The ultimatum hung between them, terrifying and necessary. And Cameron, faced with the choice he'd been avoiding his entire adult life, did what he'd always done. He retreated. Maybe you should stay at your apartment tonight, he said quietly. Give us both space to think clearly. Loveth felt something break inside her chest. Fine, she said. But when you're done thinking, when you're ready to actually fight for this, don't call me unless you mean it. Don't show up unless you're all in. Because I'm done being the only one willing to risk everything. She grabbed her bag and walked out. And Cameron let her go. Loveth lasted 3 days in her apartment before Candace staged an intervention. Girl, you look like hell, Candace said, letting herself in with the spare key Loveth had given her years ago. When's the last time you ate something that wasn't coffee? Yesterday. Maybe. Loveth was on her couch, wrapped in a blanket, her phone face down on the coffee table because every time it lit up, her heart leaped hoping it was Cameron. It never was. He's an idiot, Candace declared, sitting down and pulling Loveth against her shoulder. A rich, powerful idiot, but an idiot nonetheless. He thinks he's protecting me. He thinks he knows better than you what you can handle. Which is mansplaining at its finest, even if his heart's in the right place. Candace stroked Loveth's hair. But here's the real question. Are you done fighting? Because you gave him an ultimatum, and he chose wrong. So what now? Loveth didn't have an answer. Meanwhile, across the city, Cameron was having his own reckoning. You're being a coward, Mateo said bluntly. They were in Cameron's office, going over security protocols that Cameron couldn't focus on because all he could think about was Loveth's face when she'd walked out. I'm being practical. You're being scared. There's a difference. Mateo leaned back in his chair. Boss, I've known you for 8 years. I've seen you stare down men who wanted you dead and not even blink. But one FBI agent talks to your girl, and you fold like a cheap suit. She's not Cameron stopped. She deserves better than this. She deserves a choice, which you keep taking away from her. Mateo's scarred face was serious. My sister, the one who got kidnapped. You remember what she said after we got her back? Cameron nodded. She said the worst part wasn't the kidnapping. It was afterward, when I tried to send her away, for her safety. When I tried to make her leave the city, leave her life, because I was terrified of it happening again. Mateo's voice softened. She told me that letting fear control our choices meant they'd already won. That she'd rather live her life on her terms with risk than hide in safety without it. And if something happens to her? Then you deal with it. Together. But Cameron, look at your life right now. Look at what you have without her. Mateo gestured around the office. Is this what winning looks like? Cameron looked around his empire, the expensive furniture, the power, the control. 3 days without Loveth, and it all felt hollow. Empty. Meaningless. He thought about his father, who died trying to build something better. About his mother, lost in memories that mixed past and present. About 18 months of watching Loveth from a distance, telling himself it was noble. About 4 perfect days when he'd finally stopped being noble and started being happy. You only fight for love when you're about to lose it, Cameron murmured. What? Something Loveth said. Cameron stood abruptly. I need to go. Finally, Mateo muttered. I'll have the car ready in 5 minutes. No. Cameron grabbed his jacket. I'm driving myself. This is something I need to do alone. He made it to his car before his phone rang. An unknown number. Clark, he answered. Mr. Clark, this is Agent Torres. We need to talk about Miss Chris. No, Cameron interrupted. We don't. Because whatever you're about to threaten me with, whatever pressure you think you can apply through her, it won't work. Loveth knows nothing about my business, and I intend to keep it that way. You want me? Come after me directly. Leave her alone. Mr. Clark. I'm done with this conversation. Agent Torres. You want to build a case, build it on evidence, not intimidation of innocent people. And if I find out you've approached Loveth again without cause, I'll make sure every judge, every politician, every person who owes me a favor knows about FBI harassment of a private citizen. He paused. Are we clear? Silence. Then, crystal clear, Mr. Clark. Cameron ended the call and drove toward Loveth's apartment, his heart hammering. He'd spent 3 days thinking, analyzing, trying to find the logical solution. But love wasn't logical. Love was showing up. Fighting. Choosing courage over fear. And Cameron was done being afraid. Loveth heard the knock at 11:47 p.m. She knew it was him before she opened the door. Could feel it in the way her heart suddenly raced, in the way hope and fear tangled in her chest. Cameron stood in her hallway, rain-soaked despite the short walk from his car to her building. No driver. No guards. Just him, looking raw and uncertain in a way she'd never seen. "I'm all in," he said before she could speak. "No more running. No more protecting you from choices that should be yours. No more letting fear decide our future." He took a shaky breath. "I'm sorry I let you walk away. I'm sorry I keep trying to make decisions for you instead of with you. I'm sorry I'm such a coward that it took me 3 days to realize that losing you is worse than any risk we might face together." Loveth stood frozen in her doorway, afraid to hope. "I talked to Agent Torres," Cameron continued. "Told her to come after me directly if she wants something, but to leave you out of it. I can't promise she'll listen, can't promise there won't be more pressure, more complications. But I can promise that whatever comes, we face it together. Not me deciding what's best for you, but both of us figuring it out as we go." Cameron. "I know I'm asking you to sign up for a difficult life. I know there are risks and complications and reasons why this is a terrible idea." He stepped closer. "But I also know that the 4 days we had, those were the best days of my life. And every day since you walked out has been hell. So if you'll have me, if you'll take a chance on a man who's still learning how to fight for what he wants instead of pushing it away, I swear I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret it." Loveth felt tears streaming down her face. "You really drove yourself here? No security? I needed to do this alone. Needed you to see that this is just me, choosing you, with nothing and no one else in the way. You're soaking wet. I don't care. You could catch pneumonia." "Loveth." Cameron's voice broke. "Please. Put me out of my misery. Tell me I haven't lost you. Tell me it's not too late." Instead of answering, Loveth pulled him inside her tiny apartment, into her arms, and kissed him like she'd been starving for 3 days, which she had. "You're an idiot," she said between kisses. "A brilliant, damaged, infuriating idiot." "Is that a yes?" "That's a yes." She pulled back just enough to see his face. "But Cameron, no more running. When things get hard, when you get scared, you talk to me. You don't make decisions alone. We're partners or we're nothing." "Partners," Cameron agreed, pulling her close again. "In everything." They stood like that in her cramped apartment, him dripping rainwater onto her floor, her in pajamas she'd been wearing for 2 days, both of them holding on like letting go might mean losing everything. "I love you," Cameron said against her hair. "I should have said it properly before. I love you, Loveth Chris. Not from a distance. Not with conditions. Just completely." "I love you too," Loveth whispered. "Even though you drive me crazy. Even though this is complicated and messy and probably going to be the hardest thing either of us ever does." "You only fight for love when you're about to lose it," Cameron quoted back to her. "And we fought," Loveth finished. "Both of us. Together." Outside, rain continued to fall on the city, washing streets clean, feeding new growth, marking endings and beginnings all at once. Inside Loveth's small apartment, 2 people who'd spent 18 months in silence finally stopped running from what they'd both known from the start. Some love is worth the risk. Some people are worth fighting for. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop protecting yourself from happiness and reach for it with both hands. Consequences be damned. 3 months later, Loveth started nursing school with Cameron in the front row of her orientation, looking proud and terrified and completely out of place among the other students' families. 6 months after that, they moved into a new place together. Not his penthouse, not her studio, but something they chose together. A year later, when Agent Torres's investigation quietly closed due to lack of evidence and pressure from above, Cameron took Loveth back to that boutique on 5th Street. The black dress was still there, waiting. "Should I get it?" Loveth asked, echoing that first accidental text. Cameron pulled her close. Get it. Don't get it. I don't care what you wear, Loveth. I just care that you're wearing it with me. She bought the dress anyway. But this time, she wore it for herself. For the woman who'd learned that love wasn't about choosing the safe option. It was about finding someone worth being brave for. Someone who'd finally learned to be brave for you. Love isn't about avoiding risk. It's about finding someone worth taking risks for. Have you ever had to choose between the safe path and the one your heart wanted? Share your story below. And if this story moved you, let me know. Your comments mean everything.